someone will ask me, hey, is this something you can do? And I'm like, yeah, in theory. And I mean, I just busted my ass to figure out how to do it. I mean, I worked literally every single day for like a month. But yeah, you hustle and you kick ass and you get it done. And I mean, there's been a handful of times that I have done that. And, I would say push yourself to learn more regardless of whether or not you're getting paid for it. But it is nice when you are getting paid to learn.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 55 of the Andrew Deitch podcast. Hope you're all having a fantastic Monday. I sure am. I just started a new morning routine this week, so I'm feeling funky fresh. And if this is your first time listening to the podcast, welcome. Thanks for checking it out. My mission here is to bring you guys transparent, vulnerable, and valuable conversations with the most fascinating people that I know. And hopefully I can bring some entertainment and value to your morning commute, or maybe you're cleaning your house, or maybe you're cooking, or maybe you're at the gym, or maybe you're a crazy person that just sits down and relaxes and listens to a podcast. I don't know your life. But to those of you who keep coming back, I want to thank you guys so much for listening and sharing the podcast with your friends. I am continuously humbled to be heard by so many people, and I think the main reason why this podcast has gotten so much traction is because I'm able to use this platform to lift up other people. And today, my guest is my friend, Andrew Winchell. Andrew is a crazy talented freelance video editor and graphic designer who has worked with some huge global brands, and I'm not really sure if I'm legally allowed to mention who those brands are. I probably am, but just know that he's a pretty big deal. I don't want one of those companies to find me, take down this episode because I revealed their person that creates their epic content, and they're afraid another company's going to steal them. But I'm sure if you're dying to know, Andrew can tell you himself. But he's also an eating disorder survivor, and it's not too often you get to hear men talking about this subject publicly, and I'm really glad he was able to be so transparent and share his powerful story dealing with that. And since it's obviously not something that he's necessarily proud of, but it's something that's rampant in our society, and not too many people want to talk about it, So I really want to thank Andrew for sharing that with us. We also talked a lot about social media and video editing, because that's his thing. Also storytelling. And obviously all of that stuff continues to be increasingly popular and important in today's day and age. But I'm just going to shut up now. I'm going to let Andrew tell you all that himself. So let's just get into the episode. Please welcome my friend, Andrew Winchell. All right, Andrew, live. Double Andrew.
Double Andrew. That is correct.
I'm trying to think back. I think this is the first time we've had two Andrews. I don't think I've had anyone else named Andrew.
I don't think so.
Yeah, and if I did, I'm really sorry because I forgot about you. But give me some...
Well, let's edit that out just in case.
Exactly. This is episode 55. So, it's hard to sometimes even think back. The other day, someone was like, oh, yeah, I listened to the episode with this guy. And I was like...
What episode was that?
I felt bad because I was like, wait a second. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot I had them on.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty funny, but it's been fun, man. It's been really cool to do this so far.
Yeah.
And everyone is always like, I don't know if I'm interesting enough, or like, oh, dude, I don't know. But everyone has a story. Everyone has something interesting they can talk about. Even if they don't necessarily have the most exciting job, or
or currently no job.
Yeah, currently no job, or whatever it might be. And. For example, the last podcast, it hasn't come out yet, but with my friend Abby, she was just talking about, she's like, I just got my first job as being a waitress.
Yeah.
And but she has a crazy story.
Yeah.
If you haven't listened to that one, go listen to it because it's really
Well, you
really
said it's
intense,
not out
really
yet,
crazy.
so how am I supposed to listen to
But
it?
you can't. But the people listening to this can because by now it will be in the future.
Is that how that works?
But anyways, but yeah, so Andrew and I, we met through your wife.
Yes.
Before she
She was
your
my wife. Yes. Just live-in girlfriend,
Exactly.
all the sinning.
All of the sinning.
All of the sinning.
That's hilarious. But yeah, so, and just, I mean, I like to, every podcast kind of starts differently, but like I kind of mentioned a little bit ago, I feel like everyone kind of has a story. So I would like to kind of just go through your story and kind of how you got to where you are today, but also just so people have a vague idea, just give an like elevator pitch of what you do currently and all that kind of stuff. Just
Currently,
like
gosh.
a minute. Or what you've been up to or whatever.
What I've been up to. So I guess in a nutshell, my Instagram tag describes me perfectly. Let me just pull it up. Freelance video editor and graphic designer, wannabe comedian, eating disorder survivor, and sometimes I make marginally interesting things.
That's a very good elevator pitch right there.
Me in a nutshell.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really good. And like I said, you just got married recently to Emily.
Yeah. Well, not super recently. It's been like 6 months.
But still, recently
Fairly
in comparison
recent,
to, a couple years ago. Or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. So, just that was a whole bunch of stuff. I feel like I would love to touch on all of that if we can.
Yeah.
But just to kind of take us back a little bit, obviously, I know you from the past couple years. I didn't know you really before that, so.
But somehow you knew my brother.
Yeah, somehow like through random connections to people. I knew your brother and been friends with him on Facebook for like 6 years or something crazy.
Hashtag do not watch Max Steel. It's not worth it.
Hashtag boycott Max Steel. That's hilarious. But yeah, so just kind of take us back, like, give us a little intro of your life, I guess, like where were you born, all that kind of stuff.
Gosh, where was I born? So I was born in the small town of Terre Haute, Indiana. Population, I think 3, and then when we left, population 0.
Like they changed the sign when you were born?
Yeah, we had to change the sign. We were the only people there.
Wow.
So we were there for like 6 months.
What part of Indiana is that?
I think it's north Indiana.
Super cold?
Yeah, probably. We were only there for like maybe a year.
Gotcha.
And then we moved to New York, Long Island area. We were there for a couple of years and then moved down to Georgia when I was like 5 or 6. Pretty much have been in the greater Atlanta area.
And it's just the two of you guys? Sibling-wise?
Yeah, just me and Ben.
Gotcha. And you're the oldest?
Yes. Physically. Mentally, we're not sure. So yeah, been here, went to Duluth High School for 2 years.
Nice.
And then decided I was going to homeschool because Duluth High School sucks. Mm-hmm. Screw you, Wildcats. And so in homeschooling, it gave me the ability to kind of manage my schedule. And I had already been dabbling a little bit in, like, I say graphic design, but using like Microsoft Paint and video editing. I'm doing air quotes. You guys can't see that though, so just know air quotes.
Microsoft Paint and Microsoft Movie Maker.
And no, Windows Movie Maker. And I was downloading like GIFs or GIFs, depending on how you pronounce it. But I was downloading GIFs of like skateboarders off the internet and putting them into Windows Movie Maker and like making skateboard videos. Huh. And so when I decided to kind of pull myself out of public school and homeschool my senior year, that's when I really got involved in doing like video and graphic design a little bit more than I was. And so for Christmas one year, my parents got me a Mac. And with that, I hopped into iMovie, started dabbling in iMovie, downloaded Photoshop Express, I think it was working in that a little bit. And then, just kept moving up from there, eventually upgrading from iMovie to Final Cut, from Final Cut to Final Cut X for roughly 3 days before just jumping ship to Premiere because Final Cut X was terrible. Same sort of thing, updating from Adobe Photoshop Express to Adobe Photoshop, just the full suite, and just really like figuring out what it was that I liked graphically, what it was I liked video wise, and just pursuing that.
Yeah.
So
when you were younger, did you ever like make like stupid movies and stuff like that?
Oh yeah. YouTube.com/DREWSTIN77. I apologize in advance. There are movies that Ben and I used to make, and it was mostly me. Ben was just kind of like there. But we had, for whatever reason, this just surplus of the green army men that you have as a kid. And I decided to make war movies with them called Saving Private Brian. And they're terrible. And it's just like it's literally me setting up army men in my parents' house and then me doing all these different voices for the different army men. And then taking my brother's airsoft gun and shooting the army men. And that was like rapid fire from the other side. And so who knows how many things I broke in our house from stray airsoft pellets.
You were shooting the airsoft gun in the house?
In the house. And like, I remember there's like 5 of them. There's the first one, second one, third one was about like American Idol or something like that, or there's American Idol references in it. And then the fourth one was broken into 2 parts, and it was a parody of Pirates of the Caribbean. And it's so stupid. It is the worst. And
That's
so
hilarious.
yeah, anytime anyone asks me, they're like, so like, what's some of your early stuff? Like, what did you do? I'm like, if you watched it, you wouldn't think I am where I am today because it's terrible.
Yeah.
Like,
but it's funny
worst.
because everyone has to start somewhere. And
Yeah.
typically, like, most people suck at whatever they start at, you know?
I still suck. That's what's terrible.
But like you're sucky, like that's one thing that I think I ended up using it as my like intro quote for my friend Alex's podcast. He said even though I'm not where I want to be, high school me would have high-fived the shit out of current me or something like that. Like even though I'm not where I want to be as far as like whatever my goals are, but like I'm way farther than I'm way farther than I was.
Yeah, well, and I think that's always a good place to be in too, because if you are content where you're at, you've kind of hit that glass ceiling. There's nowhere really to go from there, and so like, why bother at that point?
Yeah, people kind of talk about fitness like that. They're always like, "Yeah, I want to lose 5 pounds," and it's like, well, then what? You got to kind of like keep going. Like trainers are always talking about that kind of stuff, like trying to. When people come into the gym, a lot of times they have this mindset of, if I just lost 10 pounds, I'd be happy. But then you've got to kind of get in their head and be like, what do you really want?
Yeah.
Is it really the number, or is it the way you're going to feel, or the way you're going to look, or the way,
Well, that's how I was. So I used to be like super big. I say super big. I used to weigh like 250, 260. This was probably like 7 or 8 years ago. And there was just something that happened in life. And I was like, all right, I'm going to like lose some weight. And yeah, it was the initial like, oh, it's a number thing. I'm going to lose 20 pounds. And then lost 20 pounds. And I was like, I'm going to lose 20 more pounds. And then lost 20 more pounds. And it was like, it was never enough because I was never content in it. Yeah. And so it was just like, and that led down a whole other road, which I mentioned in that
Yeah, I was going to
intro.
say, you said you struggled with eating disorder. Like, how were you losing the pounds?
So I was losing the pounds. At first, I started off doing it how you should do it. Just eating healthier, eating less, not drinking beer, not drinking anything fun, just water, mostly. The occasional orange juice. And just, managing what my intake was and making sure I burned roughly the same amount. And so that became, I have a very addicting personality, or addictive personality, however you want to put that. And so when I get my mind set on something, I just go hard. I go just ridiculously. And so, I started off doing that and ended up losing like 40 or 50 pounds, got down like under 200 pounds. And then just like, kept losing weight because I was just like never content in it. I was like, well, I mean, I can keep doing this. I can keep getting smaller. And like, it was almost like, F it, see how far I can push this. Like, why not? I've got nothing else to do. Yeah. And so it got to the point where I got down to like probably 165 or 170. And I used to work these summer camps during the summer for kids. And so I hadn't seen a lot of these people since the previous year, especially a lot of like the leaders at the camps. And I remember like no one recognized me at first because I was almost like 100 pounds less than I was last time they saw me.
That's crazy.
And there was someone at the camp who mentioned to me, and I don't think they were trying to like belittle my progress. I think that they were genuinely curious. They were like, you know, what are you doing? Just throwing up? And like, it never like clicked in my mind. Like, oh, not that that should even be an option, but oh, that's an option. And it was like this negative switch got flipped on. And it was like, whoa, why am I doing all this? Like, I could just be doing this. And so that led me down this whole dark path of, I mean, I would eat a bunch of stuff and then just purge and then eat
was
a bunch
it like
of stuff.
eating a bunch of junk food that you wanted to eat?
Yeah. Because I'm like, all right, cool. I can just go to the bathroom and get rid of it. And
yeah.
You know, it was just this whole like devastating journey. And if you guys want to hear more about it, I have this whole article I wrote about it called From Excess to XS, like from excess to extra small. It's on the So Worth Loving blog. You should be able to just Google that. But yeah, it just, I mean, I got to the point where the lowest I weighed, I was like 119.
Wow.
And people were like coming up to me and they're like,
man.
dude, you look like a Holocaust survivor. Like, eat a sandwich. And like, it was, people would say that. And I'm like, all right, let's see if I can like push this even a little bit further.
So those comments were actually making you want to take it to a next level of even less weight? It
was feeding just like this, I don't even know that it was ego, because I don't feel like it's an ego thing, but it was just like this dark force like pulling, just like, oh no, you can lose 5 more pounds. Oh, you could look better. Because even when I was like 119, I would look in the mirror and still be like, oh, I could lose a couple more pounds. Like, I could be thinner. And so, yeah, it was just...
Yeah. It's like it's body dysmorphia. Like, you're looking in the mirror and you're seeing something different than what other people are seeing.
There's a great image that I've always wanted to... Well, I wanted to redo, and I would have to lose weight again to do it now because I've bulked back up a little bit. Hashtag marriage. But it's a picture of a Diet Coke can, and it's like crunched up in the middle, so it's like super skinny, looking into a mirror, and all it sees is a regular Coke can. And that is, I mean, the people that I've talked to, and I personally can vouch for that. Like, that's how you feel. I weighed like what a 6-year-old weighs, and I was looking in the mirror and thinking, oh man, I could lose a few more pounds. Like, this could be better. And it's just like, it was a really sad point in my life.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird because some people can't relate to that. Some people can definitely relate to that. I think the first time I ever was able to internalize a little bit of what that felt like was when I first started like working out a little bit. Yeah. Because when you kind of start on this fitness journey, even if you're, you know, it's some people's goal to gain weight. They're trying to gain muscle. They're trying to get bigger. And some people, they would, you know, they're getting bigger. They're feeling, they're you know, looking bigger. All this stuff. People are making comments, but yet they look in the mirror and they still see like the old them or whatever because of how they're viewing themselves mentally.
Well, yeah, and it's just, you see yourself a certain way for a long enough period of time. Like, I saw myself as overweight for 10 years. So being skinny for 6 months, like, you don't see that. In your mind's eye, probably same thing for you. In your mind's eye, you still see what your brain has been seeing for so long, and you can't like detach yourself from that, even though everyone else can. So
yeah, and like, it is weird how I was talking with my friend about this. He's really tall, and like, being tall is just kind of like part of his identity, sort of. He's just really tall. And everywhere he goes, people are going to comment about, oh, how's Wither up there?
Gentle giant.
yeah, like, oh, what's up, shorty? You know, just like, you know, just making the goofy little comments that people do. And, you know, at the end of the day, your body is just this like vehicle that has been made. And you don't choose how tall you're going to be or how short you're going to be. Obviously, we're not at that level of genetic manipulation yet. Maybe in China, they've been doing some stuff. Who knows? China. They're way farther ahead of us. They're making giants.
Huge.
They're huge. They're already huge. You see Yao Ming, he's huge.
Oh my gosh.
But anyways, But yeah, like, but for me, it's like the opposite. My whole life, I was really short, and I'm not the shortest guy ever by any means, but I'm not tall.
Yeah.
But like all growing up, I was always, hey, the short guy, and I was like, a lot of the kids in my grade were older than me. Like I had a summer birthday, so my parents could either choose to like put me in the grade above or the grade below. They put me in the grade above, so like a lot of these kids are sometimes even a full year older than me.
Yeah, that's how I was too.
You perceive yourself, oh, I'm the short kid, I'm just shorter than all my friends.
Baby, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it kind of messes with your brain. It the way that you view yourself, you know, you're just, oh, I'm just the short guy, I'm the short guy, I'm the short guy, I'm the short guy, I'm the short guy. Then when you finally do grow up and you start getting a little bigger and working out and all this stuff, you're still thinking you're this like small guy.
Yeah.
Which is, it's weird. It takes a while to break down those barriers.
Yeah.
And like as a tall person, like even though your brain doesn't necessarily like care that you're tall or not, and you're just receiving like sensory inputs from the world, like if everyone else was as tall as you wouldn't know that you're quote unquote tall, but since everyone else is telling you all the time you're tall and you're looking down onto people that are shorter, I don't know. It's just an interesting, weird thing that your brain plays tricks on you.
Yeah.
Like that. But so how did you overcome from that point when you were at this, you know, like you said, people were saying you look like a Holocaust survivor?
It was definitely a journey. It was a process, but I remember one specific moment. I, was pretty tiny. It was, again, probably like 119, 120. And I went to go to the bathroom to, relieve myself and ended up blacking out and like just smashed my face right into the toilet.
Whoa.
And then came to, a couple minutes later, and I was like, all right, something needs to change here. Like, this isn't good. And like, it was a struggle. It wasn't a like, all right, not doing that anymore. It was definitely something I had to work toward. And it was something, I still like ate like a bird, just in very small increments. But I had to eat and then like sit there and just like willingly let food settle. And it was something that I hadn't done I probably lived in that for like 2 years or so.
Wow.
And so it was something, various stages of it. Yeah. But it was something that I hadn't had to do in a while. I hadn't had to sit and just like eat a meal and not purge myself of it moments later.
How does that work? I mean, scientifically, if you're throwing up all your stuff, is some stuff being absorbed like through that process, like a little bit?
It has to be. Otherwise, I think I probably would have died.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I've always been curious about that, obviously not in the sense of like, how are you still alive? But yeah, in a little bit, like you, hypothetically, if you're just throwing up everything you eat, like, you would. But it kind of makes sense you'd at least absorb some of what you're putting down.
Yeah.
But especially if you're just eating junk food all the time, that's terrible.
Yeah, which is what I do now. So I've come full force. I just only eat crap now. I'm actually eating Pringles currently as we're talking. No.
That's funny. Did your family kind of know like what was going on at all, or do they have suspicions? Or
I think there were like whispers. Especially with the job that I was at the time, my boss there is kind of like my second mom. And she actually made me go to counseling, like forced me, like drove me to a counselor, sat there with me, like made me talk to someone because she saw, she didn't necessarily know what was going on, but she knew something was up.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think I think people knew something was up, but I always, like anytime the topic got brought up, I just like, nope, I'm good. Just like smacked it right out of the way because I didn't want to have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
So.
And it's different than being anorexic in the fact that people are watching you eat.
Yeah.
But they're not watching you throw it up.
I was both. So I went through anorexia and bulimia. So I just did all the fun stops on that tour.
So it was like, I'm going to eat as little as possible, but when I do eat and I do binge, I'm just going to puke it up.
Yeah. Yeah. So if I would be out in public with people, like, I would eat very little because, I didn't want to have, and I think that's part of it too. Like I would eat something and then I wouldn't just immediately go run off because that would bring up suspicion. But then, when I got home, I'd be like, all right, freaking Fruity Pebbles. And then, all right, goodbye, Fruity Pebbles. So.
Funny enough, you bring up Fruity Pebbles because I've actually puked up Fruity Pebbles before.
It was preordained.
Yeah, it's literally like a rainbow coming up. It's
like that Snapchat filter.
yeah, exactly.
I get 10 cents anytime someone uses that. That was my likeness.
I was the originator. That's amazing. Yeah, I remember I was like in elementary school and my mom was like, eat your cereal. Come on, let's go. And she made me like chug the rest of the milk that was in my bowl. No.
Oh, okay.
But she was like angry because I poured way too much milk in my bowl. She was like, you're not going to pour that milk down. You're going to drink it. And so I like chugged the rest of the milk too with it. So then I just had like way too much milk sitting in my stomach with all these Fruity Pebbles. And then when I got to school, I was just like, ooh, and just, yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't fun.
I'm lactose intolerant, so I feel you.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Now, I haven't drank milk.
That would have been projectile Pebbles, if you will.
A little bit more aggressive than the Snapchat. But anyways, so that's really awesome. So how long has it been since you kind of overcame that? Like you said, it was kind of a 2-year process before you were kind of back to
so it was kind of
normal.
It was fairly close to me meeting my wife, actually, because I was writing this story and I kind of had my mom help me out with it because my mom's actually a writer, and she took my like 4 pages of just like essentially word vomit, terrible choice of words for what we're talking about, but took that and formed it into something that was coherent and like actually read well. And so we had like finalized all that. I was finalizing everything with this company, the blog So Worth Loving, and it was getting ready to post the next day. I think it was like Monday or a Tuesday or something like that. And Emily and I were going out on our second date Sunday, the day before. And so, yeah, it was like, it's probably a year prior to that kind of everything I started pushing toward a like recovery. But I remember that conversation where I thought it was going to be so awkward because I was like, hey, there's something that I need to tell you because I don't want you to read it online tomorrow, but I also don't really want to tell you because this is super awkward. And it ended up being like a bonding moment for us because she had dealt with a little bit of that like growing up too. And so it was like, and I talk about this in the story too, but I'm like, you know, if me, a white male can go through it, like it's not just a teenage girl thing. It's not
it's definitely not.
It's a mental disorder in a sense. And that kind of brings it all around into like, that's why you need to take care of yourself mentally, because there are all these other things. Like we think about health and we think about, oh, you know, get your flu shot. Oh, you know, take Tylenol PN, take a multivitamin. Yeah. And it's like, all those things are great. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm not a doctor, but you also need to take care of your mental health as well.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, like, there's no point in you physically being healthy if your brain's rotting on the inside too.
Yeah. And I mean, you're right. Like people argue all day long about, you know, your body's the only thing you got, but it's like your mind's included in that for sure. Mm-hmm. And, you know, your brain is controlling what's all going on.
Yeah.
Whether your body's, you know, healthy or not, it looks good or not, you could be suffering inside.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my body looked good when I was super skinny, but wasn't a good healthy space skinny to be in. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. I think a lot of people have this mentality where they hear the word skinny and like, you know, I think the standards are changing a little bit, I think for the better in some ways, because it has gotten a lot of like media attention in the past years and stuff, and you know, this whole body positivity movement and all this kind of stuff. But you know, I think now more than ever with, of course, the internet and stuff, you're just being bombarded with all these images of what you should look like.
Oh yeah.
And
all these fake images.
Like. Yeah, and there are all these fake images, and me and you both know being able to do Photoshop stuff, like you can really manipulate an image.
Yeah. All of my profile pictures on my Facebook, minus the current one of me and my wife, are like my head exploding or my hand shattering into a 1,000 panes of glass. It's like, and I'm not even the best at it. It's like so easy to make something fake look real.
It really is.
And I think that's kind of where a lot of our beauty issues stem from, is because like we see beauty, and the beauty that we see is altered. It's fake. Yeah. Even people that we think are attractive, like all these superstars who are good looking, like none of the photos you see are real. They're all altered. Like,
yeah, totally. And that's one thing that my friend Alan said during his podcast. Is he said we're just craving this authentic message these days.
Yeah.
Like for every photoshopped Kardashian image, there's also someone that's deeply appreciating an
Have you been
unaltered...
keeping up with them, by the way?
I have not been keeping up with the Kardashians,
Okay,
unfortunately.
cool. Just making sure.
Yeah, I mean, I do see them, unfortunately, on a lot of things, so I kind of know what's going on, but I don't keep up with them. But for every, image like that, there's also going to be someone appreciating an image of someone or, with no makeup in a very vulnerable position, not under ideal lighting, all this stuff showing the vulnerabilities and insecurities that people may have, because that's where, it sounds super cliche, but that's where true beauty lies, because it's natural beauty rather than this manufactured, altered, fake thing that we're all, striving for.
Yeah.
It's really... It's weird, and especially with Instagram and all this. Especially, I feel like it's Instagram with young kids because they are going on there and looking and seeing, okay, this is what I want to be like, and you'll actually see. Like I remember when I was like 13 or whatever, girls did not dress like 13-year-old girls dress now because they just didn't know how to like put it all together. And like girls now, like little girls are going on Instagram and they see like, oh, cool, like this is their little. I don't even know what those are called. Like outfit of the day thing. Oh, cool. I can go buy similar stuff and throw it together like this. Oh, I'll go watch all these makeup tutorials to make, and then you're like, what the heck? This 12-year-old girl looks like she's 25. This is just freaking me out. Like, it's just very odd.
Yeah, there's a guy that I follow on Instagram, and his name is James Friedman, I think is how you pronounce it. But it's FJAMIE013. And he's a Photoshop guy. And I love this because he'll have people reach out to him and they're like, hey, can you Photoshop this picture? Can you Photoshop this picture? And he's just a wise ass when it comes to it. They'll be like, hey, can you make this photo look better? And he'll make it look worse on purpose. Or he'll take what they ask him to do and he'll just be super literal about it.
Exactly.
And so a lot of his posts...
Like, can you put me behind this thing?
Yeah.
And like he'll put them like really far behind it or whatever.
Yeah, or like one of them was like, hey, will you get rid of this girl I'm standing with, it's my ex-girlfriend or something like that. And so he puts a sex doll next to him. And so it's like they've got their arm around this sex doll and it's like, well, I did what you asked. But what I like about him is every once in a while he'll post and it'll be like a girl, like a young girl or just anyone really. It doesn't necessarily have to be a girl specifically, but they'll send him a photo and they'll be like, hey, will you make me look prettier? Will you make me look better? And his photos are always side by side of what he's done and then what the altered photo is. And he'll put the same exact photo side by side. And then usually on top of it, there's like a white box saying like what he's going to do. And he's always just like, you be you. You're beautiful. Don't worry about thinking about how to make yourself better. Just, love yourself. Hashtag Justin Bieber. And so I love like when he does stuff like that because it's like the little reminder, like, don't strive for this imperfection that none of us can obtain. That's just so ridiculously blown out of proportion.
It's not going to be permanent. Like you're gonna
well,
get
it's permanent
wrinkles.
if you get Botox, but it doesn't look good.
It does not look good.
No.
I saw this thing on. It was like I don't even know how to pronounce the company name. I think it's like Kiehl's or Kiehls, and it's like a hand cream company or something weird. It was an ad on Instagram. It was like a video when I was scrolling.
Yeah.
And the spokesperson was this girl that had like 1.9 million followers or something. Of course, I'd never heard of her.
Yeah.
That's how crazy it is these days. Like someone that has like millions of followers, I'm like, don't know who that is at all.
Yeah.
But anyways,
because you haven't been keeping up with the Kardashians, man.
You're right. Damn it. I really need to get back into that.
Come on, Ye's calling for you.
But I go to the comments of this girl's picture, and like the first picture is this extremely photoshopped, extremely heavy, crazy makeup, all this stuff, and my immediate reaction is, ew, because I can tell she's got lip fillers and all this stuff, and it's just like, I'd be curious to see what's going on without any of that. But all the comments are from these young girls saying like, I would die if I had a picture that looked this perfect of me.
Yeah.
I'd be, if I ever take a picture of me that looks this perfect, I can die happy, or stuff like that. And I'm just thinking like, you could make that happen now. Like, you don't have to go do anything crazy. All you need is a good Photoshop guy, a person with good lighting, and a person who does good makeup. But guess what? It doesn't like matter.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, cool, you get it on an Instagram for one picture, but like it's not real. None of it's real.
Well, it doesn't need to be. I'm goofy looking and my wife's hot. So there's hope for all of you out there.
There we go. That's true. But like, some people argue, oh, well, this is art, not reality. And I'm kind of like, yeah, but if you don't disclose, and you're kind of just, I don't know. But anyways, so let's go back to your story for a little bit. So you met Emily.
Yeah.
And it was like right when you were publishing this article. How did you guys meet, by the way? I think I know this story.
Yeah, I think you do. So we actually met probably 15 years ago. Or no, probably closer to let's just say 15. So when we were younger, I used to be really involved in like musical theater, like local theater. And so...
You said your mom was a writer? Is that kind of like how you got into that? Or?
So my mom's like a Swiss Army knife. She's a teacher, she's a writer, she's a director, she's an actress. Like she just does all of the things.
Nice.
She's also a mother. I don't know if you knew that. But so we were, both my brother and I were involved in musical theater. And it was kind of when I started to realize, it was like when I had the aha moment of, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. I think I'm going to like move into the realm of video. Because when you're in theater, at least in the local theaters that we were in, you always had to pay to be in the show. And then you had to learn all these lines and do all this stuff and give up your weekends and give up your nights for rehearsal. And you never got anything out of it. Like you never got paid for it. You had to pay to do it. And there was one time that it was a show I wasn't doing, and I was doing sound for it, just like helping out because I still wanted to be involved. And there was a guy coming to film the show, and he was like, "Hey man, I can give you, like $500 if you film this show." And I was like, so I show up one night and I film the show that I'm not involved in. I make money instead of spending money, and then I just leave and go home afterwards. Cool, yeah, I'm gonna do that. And so all of that to say, that's when I started doing like tech side of stuff. And so my wife was also involved in another theater company who called me, asked me to do sound for their show. So I was doing sound, and it was one of the like dress rehearsals or it was before the actual show was there. And so we were taking like a dinner break, and I was walking around talking with my friends, and she was just like following me around and like trying to have a conversation with me. And I was like, "You're weird. Like, go away, please, stay away from me." And like literally just followed me around like a little puppy dog. And I had to like avoid her because I was like, she was super weird, and she is still super weird.
Agreed, but in a good way.
Yeah. But so that was technically our first meeting, was in that show when she wouldn't leave me alone. And then we didn't talk for years. We kind of both went our own different ways. I got involved in the video world. She went off and did college and was involved in pageants and was Miss Georgia State 2013, I believe. Yeah, I think
we'll fact check it.
We'll fact check it, yeah. She was one of them. I just don't remember which year.
She won a pageant.
Yeah. Again, she's pretty. But so she started following me on Instagram probably like 3 or 4 years ago. And I was like, this name sounds really familiar. Like, who is this? And so I clicked on the profile, and I was like, damn, like puberty did you good. Okay. And so kind of started being the creeper that just like liked all the photos. But like, I have no balls whatsoever. Like, I have no opening game at all. And so she, after like weeks of me like liking photos and commenting on posts, she sent me a Facebook message and initiated. It was like, "Hey, haven't seen you in forever. I've really enjoyed being your social media friend. We should hang out sometime, grab a drink, blah, blah, blah." And then from there, almost ruined that as well. We were supposed to hang out like 2 or 3 different times, not on like this podcast, but I was busy, and so I kept bailing. And there was one time where I was working on a video with my buddy, and the video had to be turned around really quick. And so I was basically just pulling like an all-night edit. And so I texted her. I was like, "Hey, I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to bail again on tonight. But, what are you doing this weekend?" And in my mind, the way my brain works, I just think things are funny, regardless of whether or not they actually are funny. And so I'm like going to the store to grab dinner to bring back to my house so I can keep working on this video. And there's that Taylor Swift song on the radio, "We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together." And so I just turned the music up, open up my phone and I start Snapchatting and I go, we are never, ever, ever hanging out together. And I sent it to her thinking, oh, this is funny. And she saw that, showed it to her stepsister, and like unanimously they were like, this dude's a dick. Like, don't pursue anything.
Whoa.
And so after all of that, we finally managed to hang out. We had our first date. We went down to the Starlight Drive-In, which was a lot of fun. Didn't watch either movie. And yeah, it just kind of went from there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what convinced her to go out with you after you sent that Snapchat?
This jawline is what it was, I believe. No, we didn't talk. We didn't talk for like a couple of days. And so I texted her and I was like, is everything okay? Like, I feel like we were like being pretty flirty, and then just like the conversation was severed. And she was like, I mean, I thought we were never hanging out together. And I was like, how have you not you've never met me in person. How do you not know I'm very sarcastic? Like,
yeah.
So
how do you not know that
I
was the
ended up,
goofiest, weird?
Yeah.
That's funny.
I saved it somehow. So yeah, did that. But then Disney happened. Never go to Disney ever. In a nutshell, we went there for I think it was our 1 year anniversary, and it was not the happiest place on earth. We'll just leave it at that.
What was there
we
fighting?
Might need to edit this part out.
We don't need to get into this. But anyways, you made it through. You guys are married.
We're married now. Yeah,
there we go. That's awesome. So as far as video stuff, you were saying like Emily went to college, you started doing video stuff. Did you ever go to school for video stuff, or you just like, I'm doing this?
Everything I know, well, not everything I know. 90% of what I know from teaching myself or watching a tutorial video. Like, I always joke when people ask me, they're like, so did you go to SCAD or where'd you go? I'm like, I went to YouTube University. Like, yeah. Everything, I mean, even when I was getting into very early on in the video world, I would go up to people and I'd just be like, hey, can I come shadow you on a set? Or there was a guy that I used to do some work for, and I asked him, I was like, hey man, instead of you paying me for this shoot or this edit or whatever it was I was doing, I was like, instead of paying me, can I install your version of Final Cut? Because he had like a volume license. I was like, can I install that on my computer so that I can like have that and be learning that? And so, yeah, I mean, between that and shadowing people and just asking questions to the right people, and I mean, I never even paid for like a lynda.com account or anything. It was in the early days of YouTube when YouTube was like tutorials and stuff like that. And I just found, I would type in the most random things like After Effects. How do you make someone's eyes blink based off the beat of the music? Just like ridiculous things. And then I just watch tutorials like till 2 or 3 in the morning, and then go to sleep, wake up, do my homeschooling the next day, and then get back on YouTube and
that's so cool.
Do stuff.
Dude, I feel like that's the total way to do things, though. I love how you brought up how you were like just going up to people and offering like, hey, can I shadow you? Hey, can we exchange this? Like, instead of paying me, let me get this thing. Like, so many people need to learn that, because when you go to school for a creative thing, or, you're learning, I don't know, like if you go to school for, let's say, making music, similar kind of thing.
Yeah.
You still gotta like do it. Like, you still gotta be creative. Obviously, there's technical things you can learn, but like I would say, a lot of people in the music industry are kind of like self-taught, or they had like a maybe a teacher growing up or whatever. Like, but especially now with like electronic music, like making it on a computer or something, you're doing a lot of YouTube tutorials. You're doing a lot of like just kind of goofing off, trying to make a beat, trying to make something.
Dick around, and you're like, oh, that actually sounds kind of good. Like, that's what a lot of my early videos were. It was like, I'll slap all this together and see what happens, and then, oh, that doesn't totally suck.
Yeah, exactly. And like, once you kind of get some principles down of like what makes a video, what makes people keep watching a video and stuff like that, and you like, one thing that I've realized in my few months of kind of editing videos and stuff is, I'll edit something and I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then I'll step away for like 10 or 15 minutes, then come back and watch it. I'm like, like that part right there really sucks. I need to change that. You're
never, as an artist, I think just in general, you're never going to be satisfied with something. Like, I was talking to my mom about this a little bit the other night, because her as a director now, she's a teacher and a director at Kings Ridge school. and she was talking about the show she's doing, and she's like, they're doing good, but there's little things that I'll look at and I'll just like pick at because it's not perfect. And I'm like, yeah, there's videos that I have online that I'm super proud of, but I would go back and nitpick the crap out of it now and be like, I'd do that different. That color grade looks off. That audio transition, what was I thinking? And it's like, and maybe I'm completely wrong on this, maybe this is just me, but I don't think I'm ever going to be 100% done with something. Like I can get it to a point where it's finalized to go off, but never necessarily 100% satisfied with it. Especially if I finish something and I go back and I look on it a couple months later, I'm like, I wish I'd done that differently.
Yeah. So. No, I don't think you're alone in that at all. I think a lot of people can relate. Like the biggest problem I had when I was in high school was I had like art classes. Mm-hmm. And like I would turn in a project and then I would want to, after the project was graded, I would want to go and like quote unquote finish it. Like, fix
tweak
things.
It more.
And my teacher would get really angry. She's like, no, like we're proud of this when you turned it in, right? I'm like, yeah, but like I could have fixed it. She's like, no, it doesn't matter. Like having it be 100% perfect is never going to happen because there's always going to be like something little slight. And like I've heard the phrase like, progress over perfection kind of thing. Like you need to learn how to like move on from something, be proud of it, but knowing that next time you can fix certain things.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of what you do. If I do something and I'm like, I wish I had done that different. Next thing I do, I'll try that on. Mm-hmm. But I think a funny example or a fun example is, and I'm not trying to compare myself to Kanye, so chill out, internet. But on his last album, there are a handful of songs where even after it got posted on Tidal, after it got posted on Spotify and everything, like he went back and redid tracks and re-uploaded them because he like wasn't done with it. And that's how I always feel. Like there's a bunch of videos that if I could go back and even if it's just little things, just like, I wish I'd have cut that faster. I wish I'd have speed ramped that. There's just always like little things, especially going back and looking at projects from like a year or so ago, just in everything I've learned in the past year, because I'm constantly growing and learning new things and wanting to implement those into my work. And so, it's just, I don't think I'm ever going to be 100% satisfied, but it's like what you said. It's like, what did you say?
Progress, not
perfection. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good way of kind of just encompassing that. Have you ever seen the South Park documentary?
No.
It's called...
I've also never seen an episode of South Park.
Wow.
Yeah.
So an interesting thing about South Park is in the beginning they were actually...
It's a Christian show, right?
Yeah, it's on Focus on the Family. I couldn't even say that with a straight face.
Well, I mean, they are focused on the family. It's about a bunch of kids.
And Focus on the Family is based in Colorado.
Yeah,
so
there you go. Boom.
There we go. But,
Illuminati happening over here.
Yeah. But anyways, in the old days of South Park, they were actually made by cutting out pieces of paper, and it was like stop motion. And the style of the cartoon now is still very much in that style. But they did eventually switch over to cartoon. But in the documentary, I don't know if you knew this, but when they're airing seasons of South Park, they're all about like current events, which is crazy. Which means that actually what they do, the documentary is called 7 Days, I think. And what they do is that when the new episode is aired, that very next day they go to work on this week's episode, and they actually create an entire episode in 7 days. Jeez. Which in contrast to Family Guy or The Simpsons or whatever, there's a different writer and all this stuff for each episode, and it's spread out for months, and there's different people working on these projects, whereas in South Park it's the same set of guys, same illustrators, same writers, all that for every episode, and they do it in the week leading up to the episode so it can stay relevant and all that. Which in some ways is crazy, but then it's cool because then they have, in the off season, they're literally off season, they can do what they want.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that stuck with me the most about that documentary was he was I can't remember which guy it was one of the main dudes though, and they said, of course, like when it finally airs and I'm watching it on TV, I'm always thinking of we could have made that joke better, or we could have tweaked that or whatever. And the thing that he said was, as long as you can get it to like 80%, 80% for us is like really good for the rest of the world. For us, it's like, we could have like changed, but like it was good enough to go. And we've got this deadline and that's all we can do. We had to get it to finish, get it to good enough quality and send it off to Comedy Central so they can air it. But that's all we can do. And I thought that was awesome because I'm like, that's my biggest problem is when I don't have a deadline, I'm just like going to keep working on it until I release it. But if it's like a time sensitive thing, like a podcast where it's not necessarily time sensitive, but let's say we do this and then I release it a year from now, you're not going to be very excited about it. The stuff we're talking about is not going to be very relevant.
You don't know.
I don't know, man. I've been waiting a whole year for
How
this.
dare
Now
you
I'm more
talk
stoked
down
than ever.
my episode like this? This could be great in a year's time. If you're listening to this in a year's time, if this is 2018, let us know. Does it hold up?
I wasn't necessarily saying it wouldn't age, but I'm just saying you personally wouldn't be as excited about it if I released it later. And that's kind of what I like about doing the podcast with somebody else, because then I don't have this. I feel like if it was just me on here, who knows when I would release them.
Whatever. Well, you just sit there, again, picking over everything.
Editing each little bit of silence and, I smacked my lips there. Let me.
Yeah.
But anyways, let's talk about video editing for a little bit, because obviously that's a big part of your story and like what you do. So you said you originally got a Mac and you got
I got an eMac.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Retro.
Yeah.
Was it the bulbous white one?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because
I threw it away. I wish I still had this. That was a terrible choice.
That was the one I remember. The little Apple thing had like a little oval on the front of it, kind of thing.
Yeah,
and
the tray popped down.
Tray popped out. Those were sweet.
Yep. That
they
was
had
my
some of
first
those
one.
at the Bricks at Perimeter Church, I remember.
Oh, yeah?
There was like 3 of them on a table, and people would fight over it so they could go like AIM their friends.
Yeah. Hashtag rest in peace AIM.
Yeah, it just died.
Gosh. Yeah, so started off with the eMac. Again, went iMovie at first. And if you look at any of those YouTube videos I was talking about earlier, all of Saving Private Ryan was edited on iMovie like 06 or something.
And in iMovie's defense, it's not the worst piece of software ever.
Yeah, that's Final Cut X. That's the worst piece of software.
That's funny.
You can quote me on that.
Final Cut X, wow. You'll have to explain yourself in a little bit. But anyway,
it's it's like the iPhone X of iPhones. It's just not that good.
Wow. Called out. I don't know.
And I'm an Apple fan. I say this with ear pods and an Apple Watch on, so you can take my word for it, fanboys.
I was going to say Apple has struggled with some of their design choices in the past few years, for sure.
Yeah, well, it's because Johnny Ive always wants to use aluminum.
Well, yeah, that, and also just dumb things like the Apple Pencil charging port and stuff like that. Like plugging this pencil into a thing.
Or how about with the new Magic Mouse? You can't use it while it's charging because the port's on the bottom.
I was just about to mention that.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, it's bad. It's just bad design. It's literally just bad design.
Yeah.
And I think Steve Jobs is rolling in his grave at some of the stuff they released, but hey.
Yeah, well, he's amongst the iClouds now, Joke. That was a joke that I tweeted day of, and I'm like, was that too soon?
I saw that on Time Hop. I posted a similar thing.
Yeah.
It was like, I rip Jobs. He's in the iClouds now or something. I'm like, ooh, too soon. I don't know. But anyway, I think at the time I thought it was clever. Anyways.
So editing, you're asking me about editing.
Yeah, so you went from iMovie and you kind of learned the basics of like putting together a sequence and whatever, making these goofy movies.
Yeah. And then
you mentioned how you got Final Cut. You did it in exchange for some work you did, right?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So then were you still on the eMac or did you upgrade?
I was still on the eMac. Then I was on the eMac for like a year. And then I had a job at PacSun that I had for like 8 months. And the sole purpose for that job was to raise money to get a iBook G4, old school. So
those were the shit back in the day.
Yeah,
those were
pretty cool.
Sweet. Like if you had an iBook G4, you were killing it.
I had the 14-inch, not the 12-inch. So, but yeah, so worked at I keep wanting to say Taco Mac, not Taco Mac. PacSun for like 8 months, got enough money. Huge difference, monumental difference. But so I worked there, got enough money to buy an iBook, bought the iBook, had that for a little bit, then started filming like high school shows, and so upgraded to not PowerBook. It was a MacBook Pro at that point. MacBook Pro, and then I've had all kinds of different computers since then. iMac, Mac Pro, like the new trash can Mac Pro, like just all over
There's
the
all
spectrum.
kinds of feels about that computer too.
Yeah, it's called the trash can for a reason.
So is that what you're currently using?
No, currently that's what I had at my old job, was like a spec'd out top of the line Mac Pro. Now I have just it's like last year's model, but like spec'd out iMac, 32 gigs RAM, 2 terabyte.
And that's
internal.
your main editing machine?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's solid.
And then I have my old iMac from like 8 years ago, which is somehow still chugging. And that's the secondary display for the new iMac.
Nice.
And then also runs as a Plex server in the background. All the nerd talk.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I didn't even really realize that you could just use an iMac as an external display, but I guess it makes sense.
Yeah. There's only certain models that do it.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, because I've always wondered about that, if I could somehow use an old laptop as an external display.
You probably couldn't do laptop, but you could use most desktop computers, as far as Apple goes, you can use as an external display for the laptop.
Huh. That makes sense, I guess. I mean, like, what am I going to do with this old thing?
Yeah.
The monitor's still good.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Cool. So why? So you said as soon as you tried Final Cut X, you just jumped ship to Premiere Pro because you're just like, this is total garbage.
Yeah. So
what is so garbage about it though? Because I've heard that from a decent amount of people.
So I've heard actually recently it has gotten much better, but basically Apple was on top of the game as far as like documentary stuff went. I know a lot of people cut in Avid. I know people cut in Premiere as well before Premiere kind of became what it is now. But for the industry that I'm in, Final Cut 7 was like the gold star, like that's what everyone used. And so it hadn't been updated in a while, and so they're coming out with this new version. Again, they jumped from 7 to 10 for no reason, like with the new phones. But
such a trend. So
but
stupid.
they like upgraded, they did this whole UI overhaul, and like it looked sexy, it looked good, but they stripped out a bunch of key features. And they added a bunch of weird things like the scrubbing timeline and stuff like that. And it's like not things that were necessarily bad, but it wasn't how Final Cut worked. And my whole thing was, if I'm going to have to relearn how to do a program anyway, I'm going to jump over to this program that's a lot like what I used to cut in, instead of taking the time to learn how to use this new software and like.
And it's cross-platform, so if you ever did want to edit on a different machine or whatever, you could.
Which can be buggy at times, but yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so you went from Premiere Pro, and that was like pretty easy jump.
There was a little learning curve to it, just because there are different things, but I had done enough stuff in After Effects and Illustrator and Photoshop and InDesign that I understood the layout, I understood what the icons meant, and I knew I had a good amount of knowledge in Final Cut that, it took me a second to like figure out what the keyboard was and map out what my keyboard needed to be, but yeah, it was a lot easier than having to learn how to do Final Cut X.
Yeah, and would you say that like right now Premiere Pro is pretty much industry standard, or do a lot of people still use Final Cut, or?
I don't know. I know now for a lot of the people that me and my previous company worked with, and me now as a contractor, a lot of people use Premiere and stuff. I know a lot of people out in California and in the movie industry, I feel like is more geared toward like Avid.
What's Avid made by? Is it just made by Avid?
I don't even know.
Because I've heard of that before, but I've never.
So yeah, there was like Sony Vegas, I think used to be a platform, might still be a platform.
I was gonna say, because I actually remember I had to edit a thing in school when I was in high school, and I downloaded like a cracked version of Sony Vegas.
No.
I know.
I'm reporting you. You know that Instagram ad that's always like report piracy. I'm reporting you, podcast. Yeah, I think.
Well, I will have you know that right now I am the proud subscriber to Adobe CC, and I am paying for all of my licenses for this podcast and my personal use. I have no cracked applications, and I can say that with confidence. And I did not always.
I'm gonna give you a little workaround on how to get it, and you guys as well, on how to get it cheaper.
Student?
Marry a teacher. I signed up with her ID, with her like teacher email, and then they verify that she works at the school that I said that she works at, and I get the entire Creative Cloud suite for $20.
$20? Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was the thing is when I was first...
and also you're married, so that is like just another added perk.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, and you get all the benefits of a wife and stuff, yeah.
And all the... Yeah, yes.
Yes, only benefits.
Stop it there.
Yeah, but...
I love you, honey.
When I was figuring out what I was going to do with the podcast, I was very familiar with Photoshop. Maybe I was paying for it, maybe I wasn't, I don't know. But... And I knew that I wanted to use that for like creating the artwork and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was not familiar at all with like any kind of audio editors and stuff. But I was looking into like what Adobe had, and I was like, yeah. And then also I want to buy a new computer because that was the other thing. I needed a new computer because my old computer was terrible. And so I was like, what can maybe I'll start trying to make some videos too, just for fun and trying to goof around. So I was like, okay, this is a good deal. If I get the whole Adobe Creative Suite, I get everything. So like, why not? But I was like thinking, okay, maybe I can get one of my friends who's in college to like let me use their and all this stuff. And I'm like, you know what, Andrew? You're an adult. Grow up. Pay the $50. And if somehow you're able to get the student discount later, then so be it. But just bite the bullet and just freaking do it, because you're not in school and you're not married to a teacher. So just,
but
what?
You could be.
I could be.
You could be.
I could be. Teachers of America, I'm single.
Just date a teacher. You don't even got to be married. Just know a teacher.
See, that was the thing.
Befriend a teacher.
That was the thing is I definitely
just go
know
hang out at schools. Maybe don't do that.
The interesting thing is teacher. I was thinking students, but teachers. I definitely know a couple teachers. Maybe I can get some teachers.
Hook a brother up.
Yeah, because they don't. I mean, they might send you some emails, but whatever. Few emails from Adobe. You're helping me out.
Yeah.
Anyways, it doesn't matter. But yeah. So I'm using all Adobe products as well right now, which is fun.
Cool. So do you like cut this in
Audition?
Audition.
Yeah. So I'm cutting this in Audition, which has been great. A lot of people that are like starting podcasts will suggest that you use like Audacity and free programs like that.
Yeah.
And yes, they work, but if you're in an unideal recording situation or your microphone, like there's just really cool stuff that I've learned just by quick YouTube tutorials that have been able to make my audio quality, 2 times better.
Hashtag YouTube University.
Yeah.
Telling you.
And that's the interesting thing that I've thought, when you brought up YouTube earlier, I wanted to mention this. YouTube still does have that side of it, and there's a lot of channels that are dedicated to being educational and tutorial focused, and then obviously there's the Jake Pauls of the world that are making just terrible, like when kids these days
we're not
think
calling you daddy, get over it.
When kids these days think YouTuber, they're not thinking like a guy that's creating YouTube tutorials. They're thinking of like a guy that's vlogging their life, making dumb decisions.
Have you guys seen this Vine compilation?
Yeah. Well, I am not gonna lie, I am addicted to Vine compilations right now because R.I.P. Vine. Like I used to spend so much time on Vine that it just brings up so much nostalgia.
I'll add one to it. I used to spend so much time in the bathroom on Vine.
Same. And when I was trying to go to sleep, because you would just be like,
worst
you'd
time.
Be like, one more.
Yeah.
Oh, that was funny. One more.
Yeah.
Oh, that was not funny. Okay, I gotta end on a good one. One more.
How did Jake Paul get on my feet? Get out of here.
For whatever reason, I always bring up Jake Paul for dumb reasons on this podcast. But I'm gonna make it a goal to not talk about Jake Paul anymore. Logan Paul.
I want my cover photo to be Jake Paul, and then just some sort of inspirational quote that I did not say at all.
That would be great.
And then I will maybe like it on Instagram.
Good. Okay. Well, then I'm definitely doing it because I'll have at least one like. But yeah, there's like this weird side of YouTube where you have this tutorial side, and then you also have this other. I mean, there's multi-facets of YouTube, of course.
Yeah.
It's the number 1 video hosting place on earth. It's also fun fact, it's the number 2 search engine on earth.
Really?
Google search is number 1. YouTube search is the second most used.
It's not Microsoft
search.
Bing?
No, it's not Bing.
Really?
It's not Yahoo.
That's so strange.
Yeah.
It's not Chandler Bing, huh?
It's Chandler Bing.
It's a Friends reference.
Oh, okay.
Showing my age here.
Oh, okay, Chandler. Okay. I never really watched Friends.
Oh, shame on you.
I know.
Shame on. It's on Netflix.
I know.
What are you doing with your life?
know.
It's on MTV at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
I have watched episodes, but I didn't. Is that Chandler's last name?
Yeah.
Okay.
Chandler Bing.
Okay, I see. Chandler Bing. That's funny. I appreciate that. But now that it's been explained. But yeah, it's YouTube is amazingly helpful because I can just go on there and be like, hey, how do I, make the echo disappear?
Yeah.
And then you get into that and they teach you how to use like these different tools and then they show all the other use cases and you're like, oh, I can even do that?
Well, yeah, and you'll search for something. Like one of the things I was trying to do was there was a wedding that I was editing and there was like just some
You were
static.
editing?
Yeah, I was wetting. The best. I love wetting. And I wetted the bed now. So I was trying to figure out how to get rid of like this hiss and this hum that was in the audio track. And like I knew kind of how to do it, but I was like, well, let me just like see if there's a better way to do it. And in Audition, there are 2 ways of doing it. One that's better for music, one that's better for vocal. And so yeah, I like watched this little like 2-minute tutorial video, figured out how to do it, and then like the autoplay feature comes up and it just starts playing like all these other things. And so you can go out and you can look for what your question is and learn how to do it. And then usually it's the same channel has all this additional information about that same app, and it's just like free out there. Like you just got to take an hour and sit there and absorb it. Like,
yeah, and
there's a plethora of information that's just literally at your fingertips.
Totally. And I love subscribing to those channels because I'm a big YouTube consumer. Like I watch a lot of YouTube. And so when I subscribe to a channel like that, something new will pop up and I'm not necessarily overwhelmed by their library already of stuff.
Yeah.
Like a new video will pop up. I'm like, oh, cool. Yeah, that I would know how to do that. I would like to know how to do that in the future or whatever. Like how to make a swipe transition when someone walks across or whatever. And you're like, oh, that's cool.
That's easy. That's a mask in After Effects.
Yeah,
and I learned how to do it. And I know how to do it now.
Yeah, exactly. But stuff like that, and it's very very fascinating because you can learn how to do anything. Whereas I was listening to a podcast recently where this lady was talking about how she went to Yale because of their library. And I was just like, that's so crazy that you went there because of the access to the information.
Yeah.
Whereas now, a 5-year-old has that same access to that library or that information.
Probably comparable. I think Yale's library might be a little bit better.
Probably. And it's definitely more curated.
Yeah.
But I'm saying as far as like going to the library, searching for the right book, and like finding this piece of content in some random book, whereas Google, finding that info.
And not even Google. So I am not 100% confirmed that this is everywhere, but I know that it is in at least Georgia or the metro Atlanta area. But speaking of library and content, for websites like lynda.com, where it's all just like, it really is tutorials. It's not like some 13-year-old sitting on his laptop and he's like, hey guys, this is how we're going to learn how to mask in After Effects. It's a website where like literally professional people teach you. They have like courses, they have tutorials, and it's usually like $100 a year or something. But if you have a library card, you can sign up for lynda.com with your library card's number and get it for free. So that's
so
another
School
great
library
thing.
Or just public library?
I think just public library.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's LYNDA, right? Lynda.com. I think that's how you spell it.
I think so.
I think it's LYNDA for people that are listening that are interested in that. I'm sure you can just look up Lynda Learning or whatever.
Yeah, LYNDA.com.
Cool. Yeah, that's really interesting.
It is not lemonparty.org. Do not go to lemonparty.org.
It's not penisland.org.
It is
or
Penn.
.com.
Yeah. .edu.
Penisland.edu.
That's the school that I went to. I kept the shirt too.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Our mascot was a real dick though.
Oh my gosh,
segues are weird.
What'd you say?
Segues are weird.
Yeah, exactly. No, but I was gonna say, okay, so we're talking about editing and all this stuff. For people that are curious about, maybe they want to start getting into video editing or whatever, all this kind of stuff, what would you encourage them to do? Because obviously you kind of had an interesting way of going about it. Most people are kind of thinking like, well, my parents want me to go to school. Like, should I go to SCAD?
Yeah.
Or, like what would your advice be?
I mean, I never really had the option of going to school because, my parents weren't wealthy and I was not like a straight A, like 4.0 GPA. So school was never really an option for me. So I kind of had to find how I was going to do it outside of that realm. And I mean, luckily it is a field where it's not necessarily about, sometimes it's about what you know, and sometimes it's also about who you know. Like my very first job was, doing graphic design for a company called Rethink. And I literally told them, I was like, guys, if you want me to be able to work these summer camps, I have to have something the rest of the year to be doing, because otherwise I'm going to have to go get a full-time job doing whatever I can get a full-time job doing. And they're like, all right, we'll give you 20 hours a week of stuff to do and we'll find stuff for you to do. And so through that, I was able to essentially get paid to learn everything that I did. And so, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can go about it. And I'm not saying that school isn't necessarily one of those ways. One of my really good friends went to Art Institute of Atlanta and he's doing really well.
Of course.
But it's just not your only option. Like,
and you could even contrast that, unfortunately, by saying that there's a lot of people that do go to schools like that and end up not working in that field and not getting those jobs.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate, but it's just kind of like the landscape of where things are right now.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's really just putting yourself out there, networking, and
not being afraid to like do stuff for free like you were talking about.
Yeah. I
think
mean,
that's a big one.
There was, even now, recently, I did something for free where I just donated my time to go to this like charity golf thing, and it was to raise awareness about like suicide and like, or not suicide, it was to raise awareness about like drug overdoses and stuff like that. And I went out and got up early and drove all the way out to like Tucker, Georgia or something, and was on a golf course all day in the sun, like working my butt off for free. But I was doing it because it was a good cause and because I wanted to meet some of the people there. And, from that, I've gotten some work out of it. And so it's like, donate your time, be kind, know what you're talking about. Like, if you don't have a job, don't sit at home on the computer watching YouTube all the time. Like, sit on the computer and actually like start putting stuff together, figure out how to do stuff so that when someone does call you or someone does ask you, hey, can you do this video, or hey, can you come shoot this thing, you can say yes. Like, it's all about what you know and who you know. It really is, because again, I'm doing this and I have nothing but my GED.
Yeah.
So,
and like you said, it was all self-taught and all this stuff, but because you can show your chops and you can show projects you've worked on, people are like, I don't care that you don't have this degree.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen what you can do. Like, do this for us. Like, that's what I think of a lot of people, they're always afraid that they're going to be judged on what they have or whatever, but it's like, even with a regular degree, a lot of times it's about just getting that first job. Then once you've had that job, you can then go to another place and say, hey, I've worked here for this many years, blah, blah, blah.
Or you can stay in that same job and work up the corporate ladder. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I've appreciated about even just me starting this podcast. I could have made the decision to just say, I don't know, I'll do it eventually or whatever. But I had to like go out and like buy this little recorder thing and buy some mics and get the Adobe Creative Suite and get a new computer and all this stuff. And like,
yeah, and you didn't necessarily know what you were doing at first, but episode 55, 56, 57, you probably have a good handle on it. And so, yeah, I mean,
and like tons of opportunities are coming my way just because I decided to like go out there and like create something.
Yeah.
And I've been fortunate enough where, people are enjoying what I'm putting out. Obviously, a lot of stuff that people create just kind of gets lost in this sea of obscurity. And of course, I'm like blessed in the fact that I've been able to have a lot of cool people on the podcast and people are listening and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, like you said, instead of just sitting on the couch watching YouTube tutorials, actually just go out and like try to create some stuff.
Yeah.
So that, like you said, when someone comes and asks you if you can do this job, you're not like, I've never done it before.
Yeah.
Just practice and like try to do something similar to that on your own or whatever.
Yeah. And I mean, while I wouldn't necessarily like,
or shadow somebody.
Yeah, shadow someone. And while I wouldn't necessarily be like an advocate for this, a lot of the stuff that I have done in the past, someone will ask me, hey, is this something you can do? And I'm like, yeah, in theory. Like the company that I used to work for, we had a client come to us and they wanted like a typography piece, like a kinetic typography with all these like elements and animation and stuff like that. And it was really like the first project I'd ever like went like full on into After Effects. And they're like, yeah, is this something you can do? And I was like, yeah, sure. And I mean, I just busted my ass to figure out how to do it. I mean, I worked literally every single day for like a month, except for the Sunday that was like the finale of Breaking Bad. That was like the one I was like, no, Walter White's taking priority here, guys. But yeah, you hustle and you kick ass and you get it done. And I mean, there's been a handful of times that I have done that, and without necessarily that match getting lit under my ass, I might not have like put all the hustle in that I needed to do to get that done. But because I did, now I can open up After Effects, and I'm not in any way saying that I'm like this fantastic animator, but I can open up After Effects and I can make something that 4 years ago I would have been like, huh? Can I just buy a project file and like edit that? So I mean, yeah, I would say push yourself to learn more regardless of whether or not you're getting paid for it, but it is nice when you are getting paid to learn as well.
Of course.
So
yeah, I mean, like you said, you're not necessarily advocating that people go and take jobs that they know they can't do, but that's kind of how most people do any kind of job.
I think it's worded a little bit differently though, because it wasn't necessarily a job I couldn't do. It was a job I didn't know how to do yet. Like if it was a job I couldn't do, like if they came to me and they were like, yo, we're looking to do something in, Cinema 4D and we want to create this like 3D environment, I'd have been like, nope, here's the contact for that, not even going to bother. But it's something that I knew I had an interest in. It's something that I wanted to learn anyway. I just didn't have the self-control, not the self-control, but
self-discipline,
the discipline to sit down and be like, all right, I'm going to spend the next 30 hours like building an After Effects project. Whereas with this, I had to. And so it kind of forced me into doing it. And as a result, I can do a bunch of different stuff now that, again, 5 years ago, I'd have been like, how do you make a lower third?
Yeah, and a lot of times even people will download, for me, for example, I remember, like you said, you were goofing around in Microsoft Paint and stuff like that. That's what I was doing. And then I was like watching some stuff on YouTube and I'm like, whoa, wait, Photoshop, you have like layers?
Yeah.
You can layer stuff, whereas in Paint, once you cut something out, you can't do anything with it after that.
Yep.
And it's just there. And so I was like, whoa. So I downloaded Photoshop. I paid for it. And I paid for it with diseases on my computer.
Yeah.
Anyways, when I open it up though, and you're all excited and you're like, I'm going to make something. When you're opening Microsoft Paint, you're presented with like a blank white slate, and then there's all these paintbrushes and tools.
Why has it got to be
stuff.
white?
I don't know. It should be anything else because white's the worst. But when you open up Photoshop though, you're not presented with even anything open.
A checkered thing. It's just like create something.
Yeah, and you're
at
just
least
like,
on my computer. That's what it does. Well, and the other thing I'll say too.
And I just like closed it down. I was just so overwhelmed.
The other thing I'll say too, to kind of go back into like the After Effects and like learning stuff, is one of the things that I have done in a couple of years since is when I want to figure out how to do something and I don't know how to do it. There's a bunch of different places you can go for this. There's videohive.net is one of the places. There's a guy called Andrew Kramer who has videocopilot.com, and you can go, sometimes you have to pay for them, but you can go and you can download project files, like After Effects project files, and I'll go and like reverse engineer them. I'll be like, okay, how did they make that happen? And so I'll kind of deconstruct these projects to figure out how they got it to this end piece. And as a result, I'm like, oh, okay. And it's kind of teaching yourself. It's self-taught because you're essentially stripping someone's work back and then putting the puzzle pieces back together to figure out how it works. But that's a great way to learn about it that's free. Like you don't even have to go find a tutorial video. You don't have to go to lynda.com. You can just go to a website, click download free project file. It'll download a AEP After Effects project, and then just open it up and just play around, like figure it out.
For people that are not familiar with After Effects, what exactly does it do, and what can you use it for? You know, because like that's the thing is I've just started using Premiere Pro. I have After Effects on my computer because I'm subscribed to the Adobe Creative Cloud subscription, but I haven't really dabbled in After Effects at all.
So After Effects is yes. Anything that you see, I don't even know how to explain it. It'd probably be better to just go watch a video, like an overview on After Effects. But like,
what for example, like when in a video, if you saw something, what would be something that you could just do in regular Premiere? What's something that you definitely need like After Effects to do or something like that?
I'm not sure what it would be as far as stuff you can do in Premiere versus After Effects, because any sort of animation I use After Effects for. I know that Premiere has some like built-in filters and like transitions and stuff, but probably the main one that I feel like people are even going to know is a lot of YouTubers right now who are like the travel blogger YouTubers who have all the crazy cool side swiping and zooming transitions and stuff like that. That's all After Effects. Any of that stuff is After Effects. Anytime you see a lower third, which is where someone's name comes in and a logo pops up, like the company they work for or anything like that, that's all After Effects. Any like keying out on a green screen, that's all After Effects. Like that's why it's called After Effects. It's like anything that's not shooting and editing that's on screen, it's all After Effects for the most part.
You're putting in the effects after.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I definitely want to experiment more with it because I have it.
Another one is I mentioned kinetic typography. Any of that kind of stuff. Like band lyric videos.
That's what I was going to say. Lyric videos are number
any
one
of
for
those, like, it's crazy because it's a lot of stuff, and I feel like unless you're like in it, you don't really realize it.
Yeah. Because now that I've been dabbling in that kind of stuff, I've been trying to deconstruct how people make videos and stuff like that. I'm just like, I have no clue how to even begin to make something like that. Like there's this one, oh my God, there's this guy who makes videos for like Future and like a bunch of like rappers.
Oh yeah, Gibson Hazard.
Yes, Gibson Hazard. What
dude,
the fuck,
my buddy John introduced me to him a couple of weeks ago, and because like that's kind of like what I would, in a perfect scenario, I would love to just do like travel with bands. I have a couple of friends that I'm really good friends with who are in bands, and I'm like, man, like the joke has always been like, I'm just gonna quit my job and travel with you guys. And now that I have quit my job, I'm like, guys, you need to make it big so I can travel with you guys. Like, come on, I held up my end.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I got introduced to him, and it's just like, what the like, are you kidding me?
Seriously.
So all of his stuff, yeah, just After Effects and Cinema 4D, and just like, and the dude's like 22 or something like that.
Yeah, he's super
I'm just
young.
like, what?
I actually listened to a podcast with him recently, and it was crazy.
Yeah.
Like, and he just kind of acts like it's just no big deal. He's like, yeah, I just kind of goofed around and figured out how to do it, and like just kind of like pushed the limits. And I was just looking at a lot of these videos, and it just didn't really excite me. Like a lot of these videos are just all kind of the same, and I try to just make something different that no one had ever seen before, and he definitely succeeded at that.
Yeah.
It's really crazy.
He's got a cool brand, yeah.
Yeah, definitely interesting. But dude, so you mentioned that you quit your job. So, I mean, we don't need to go into the details of why that exactly happened, but like now you're doing your own thing, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, so, but I mean, obviously it wasn't like you just quit and you're like, screw video, I'm done with this. You know, it was like you still want to be in that space, but now you're freelance essentially, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, without, you know, sharing anything you don't want to share, like just, you know, what happened and what are you doing now?
So the biggest thing, and we talked a little bit about it at the very beginning of the podcast, but we were talking about mental health and taking care of yourself mentally. And the job that I was at, it wasn't necessarily, the way that I explained it was it didn't feel like home anymore. It wasn't the company that I signed on to be a part of 5 years ago. And, you know, I wish them nothing but success and the best, but it was just kind of my time in the story to step away and kind of figure out my own thing. And one of the big reasons for that was my mental health. I, you know, was having panic attacks, like in front of, you know, my boss and my coworkers at my office. And
From being like overwhelmed by work, or like what was the...
I think it was being overwhelmed by work, feeling like I did need to step away, but not really knowing how to go about saying that. And yeah, it was just a lot of the work that we were doing was just different from, what we were doing when I came into it. And it's good because the company was growing, but it was kind of growing in a direction that I didn't really see myself being a part of anymore. So yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things was just mental health. And so I kind of, I gave my 2 weeks, finished up my projects that I had going on there. And then I just like slept for like 2 weeks and just like focused on taking care of myself. I've talked with people. I didn't talk with a counselor because I didn't feel like paying for a counselor. Yeah. Because I don't have a paycheck anymore.
Yeah. But you were getting counsel from other folks.
Yeah. And so I think overall, like, I'm in a better place now. And it's good because I'm able to kind of be my own boss and figure out what the projects I do want to do are. And, sometimes it can still be crazy, and it can be, a job that, you're gone from your wife for, a week, and you're, up until 3 a.m. working, and then you're back up again at 7 a.m. to work again all day. But it's different when you're the person that's in charge of creating that schedule, because it's giving me the power to say yes to something versus someone telling me this is something that I have to do. Now. Yeah. And so that was a big thing with the previous company, was I didn't have any say in that. It was like, hey, this came up, you are doing this. And I was like, it was time for me to kind of branch out, do my own thing, be my own boss, make my own schedule, work on the things that I felt passionate about working on. Because that was the other thing, is I didn't want to stay at a job that was doing work that I wasn't passionate about, because at the end of the day, that doesn't just reflect on me, that reflects on them too. And I didn't want them to be putting out shitty work because it was projects I wasn't interested in doing,
Yeah.
So even though work might be scarce now, when stuff does come up, it's stuff that I'm like, yep, I want to do that. Like, here's how I think I could bring a creative advantage to that. Here's, my 2 cents as far as pre-production, what I think that this vision for this project should look like. And so I have a little bit more say in things. And again, it's my baby now. Yeah. Anything that I put out has my name on it. And so I'm going to make sure it's the best of the best. And it's because it has my name on it, but also because I took it on, because it's a project either I'm really passionate about, or it's a story I want to tell, or it's a person that I really want to work with. And so having that creative freedom to do that and just to exist on my own has been super helpful. And it was overwhelming at first, but now that things have kind of like settled in, it's good. Like, that's awesome. No more panic attacks. So that's always awesome. Super good.
Yeah, that's always super great. Less panic attacks are better.
Except when I fly. I still get panic attacks when I fly. So I gotta take Xanax for that. Ooh. Yeah.
What's the freak out because of? Like, is it I could potentially die? Is it
no, it's like
everyone's
enclosed. It makes no sense, because when I used to work for the company that I used to work for, Rethink, I was telling you about, I used to travel a bunch with them because they did tours, what they called it, Orange Tour, and they did stops all around the U.S. And so I used to fly all the time, and even back then, flying never sat well with me. And it was always when there was like bumpiness, and even on a smooth flight now, like my brain goes back to like the really turbulent flights that I've been on. And so I always joke with people, I'm like, the flight can be the smoothest flight in the world, and the kid behind me kicks my chair, and I'm like, oh, we're going down. Here it's going. Because my brain just goes back to that moment.
Yeah.
So that's what it is for me. And also, like, I just don't like being, like, car rides are bumpy. And I think it's a control thing. That's what I think it is. Because car rides are bumpy. And I was driving home from the airport a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, if this was a flight right now, I would, like, be like twitching like crazy because it was just like so rough for driving home. But I think because I'm in control of the vehicle, it makes a difference. Whereas you're not in control when you're on a flight, and you're also freaking like 9 miles up in the sky. And I don't love heights, so that's another thing. But yeah, I've had enough experience with planes that I know the plane is not going to fall out of the sky. I know that they're designed to withstand turbulence. I know that there's been worse turbulence than what I've been in, which freaks me out because I'm like, shoot, this isn't even the worst, but I just don't like it at the same time.
Yeah.
Like my wife and I are planning a trip for not this upcoming summer, but the following summer, so 2019, to go to Europe because she's a huge like Holocaust, I can't think of the word.
Aficionado?
Yeah.
Yeah, not like a, you don't want to say you're a fan of the Holocaust because that just sounds terrible.
No, how do I say this? She's very interested by all of that stuff.
I mean, for lack of a better word, it is very fascinating.
Yeah.
Because of, I mean, how absolutely crazy it is.
So she's wanted to go over there forever. So I want to take her over there, do that. I'm a huge like beer nerd, and my favorite style of beer is Belgian beers, and my favorite beer is St. Bernardus. And so I'm like, well, if we're gonna be over there, I'm gonna go to St. Bernardus and like drink a beer with the monks, like duh. And then there's like a handful of other places we want to go while we're over there. My cousin lives in one of the countries over there. Gosh, I can't think of what it is.
My cousin lives in Europe.
Yeah. my cousin lives not in the U.S.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm like, shoot, trying to mentally prepare for that now even, because that's like 10-hour plus flight. I'm like, we're going to have to take a red eye, and I'm going to have to take like 4 Tylenol PM.
Yeah.
So,
I was going to say, all of my international flights I've never really had turbulence on those long flights. It's always been like...
Well, because I've heard flying over the ocean's smoother because a lot of turbulence happens from the wind gusts hitting like mountains and stuff like that over land, which to my recollection, I can't really remember any turbulence on long flights over the ocean. So I think it'll probably be good. Yeah. Again, just pop a couple Tylenol PM.
Yeah, and just go
do
to
a
sleep.
red eye, go to sleep. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. We could talk about Europe for forever, but that's a whole nother podcast. But what were you saying before you talking about the turbulence and flying and stuff with the other company? You were saying just like your new thing. Were you like scared to leave the company, or was it kind of like it was like, this is my time and I'm going to do my own thing now and this is great, or was there some...
I mean, it definitely... I wasn't scared to leave from like a money standpoint because, Emily has a job. I knew that, we still were going to have some sort of income coming in.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, no. But at the same time, like, it just felt like it was time to go. Mm-hmm. And so I think I don't want to use the term scared, but it would have been worse for me to have stayed, for my health. I had to take a step back. You gotta leave
a toxic situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So just to go a little bit practical for people that are listening, a lot of people are not necessarily as at an advanced level as you are of equipment, gear, editing, all, even just having an iMac or whatever to edit on. But if people are interested in like getting started, or maybe they want to step their current setup that's they're making videos on their phone or whatever. Yeah. What would you kind of recommend for people? Obviously, there's all different types of use cases and stuff, different equipment for different stuff. But if people are kind of just trying to like get their feet wet, or maybe they're just trying to like step their game up slightly as far as like equipment wise, what have you seen out there that's like good?
It really depends on what your budget is. So
let's say you got like $1,500 to upgrade like your whole setup, and maybe not like a new computer or something, but maybe like new equipment, maybe a new camera, new stuff.
We can talk about that a little bit. What I would encourage people to do though is there's a saying, the best camera is the one that you have with you. And so if you're wanting to tell a story, like tell it on your phone. Like if the content that you're wanting to capture is gripping content, It doesn't matter if you shoot it on a GoPro. Doesn't matter if you shoot it on your phone. Doesn't matter if you shoot it on a Red Epic or a C500. Like, what I would say to people is find stories that are already things that are enticing, that people want to watch or listen to. And then from there, I mean, there's a million different things you can use to do it. But that's the overall thing. Don't go out and buy a camera. Don't go out and buy an upgraded computer or laptop and then just make a terrible video. Like, find the stories that need to be told or are engaging an audience. Like, that's the main thing.
Mm-hmm.
As far as gear does go, if you're wanting to get something that's on the low end, you know, DSLRs are a great option. The Panasonic GH5 just recently came out, does 4K 60, I believe.
Is that the Lumix?
Yeah. So that one is the newest one. I think that's $2,000, but the GH4 is not at all a bad camera. It's not great in low light. But you could probably get that even cheaper because the new one's out. Same sort of thing with Apple. Like, as the new stuff comes out, the older stuff goes down in price. There's a lot of what you'll see, especially even with the Gibson Hazard, like we were talking about, and a lot of those like people and all these travel YouTubers. You'll notice a lot of their moving shots are like super steady. It doesn't look like someone's walking, like holding their phone. And there's a bunch of different ways you can do that as well. There's two companies. Freefly is one of them, and they make the Movi and the Movi Pro, which is essentially, if you know anything about drones, the gimbal that's on the bottom of a drone that keeps the camera steady, it's that, but you hold it. And so you can put a camera on that. Again, DJI is another company that does that. They have their Ronin M, Ronin, essentially the same thing, they just weigh more. Those range anywhere from like $2,000 to $20,000. So if that's something that you have in your budget, you can do that. Or there's other crazy little things like that. DJI has a thing called the Osmo, which is a lot of fun. Again, not great in low light, but gets the job done.
And they even have just the Osmo controller that you can put your phone in.
Yeah. And there's a million things out there. You can buy cheap Chinese knockoffs that probably do the same exact thing that get the job done. But again, it's really about the story or the concept. Like, because obviously not a highlight video is not necessarily going to have a story, but just
But you kind of can figure out what's the beginning, climax, and then sort of something. I don't know.
Because like you even look at commercials. Like if you actually sit down and break down a commercial, there's a story to it. Like I mute it 10 times out of 10 because I don't want to hear it, but there is something going on that's engaging, and that's why it's on your television, because it's good enough to be on your television. That's why it's not on Vimeo somewhere with 3 views and 1 like. So that is what
it's in 4K though, bro. It's good.
And I think for me too is like I'm not a gearhead. I am an editor. I live more in the post-production life. So I can sit here and I can talk about gear all day, but it's not what my craft is.
Yeah. Well, that actually is a good...
I'm like, give me footage, because I've done a million different projects with stuff like Red cameras or Phantom slow motion cameras, stuff I filmed with my phone, stuff I filmed with GoPro. Like, as long as the content is engaging, it doesn't really matter what you film with. And that's my whole thing. I'm like, I don't care what it's shot on as long as it's good.
That's awesome, man. I enjoy hearing that, because that's encouraging for a lot of people, because some people do get really bogged down with like, if I had this, my stories would be, but it's like, nah, not really necessarily.
There's a bunch of people.
Trumps everything.
There's a bunch of people that spend a bunch of money on a camera. Like I could own a, Red Helium, like 8K camera, which is like, I think body alone is $50,000. That doesn't mean that I'm going to take that out of the box and be a fantastic filmmaker. Like that's not how it works.
You probably won't even know how it works.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's why I'm saying, like, encouraging people into finding a better story, telling a better story. Like, camera and gear is all great, but it's one piece to the puzzle.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say that's actually a really good segue, because my next thing that I was going to touch on is a lot of people, they do want to, a typical thing is they want to edit like a travel video that they made with their GoPro or whatever on their trip to Hawaii or their trip around Europe or whatever they did. And, I'm sure you've watched a decent amount of these on Facebook or whatever, and you as an editor, and you're saying that's like the thing that you actually love the most. What do you feel like are the biggest mistakes as far as people are making, or what are some little things that people can do to make those videos better? Or even like if you've watched some of my stuff, like I would love to be like know what some of the videos that I've made recently could be better on or whatever, things like that.
As far as you go, just stop doing video, man. I really don't have anything to tell you. No, I'm just kidding.
Roast me, bro.
I think the biggest thing, and it's something even, I play catch up with sometimes, is, again, there needs to be some sort of story there, not just like a 2-minute video with pretty shots. Like, yeah, that video can exist, but it doesn't really have any depth. You might be like, oh, that's cool, but no one's probably going to come back and watch that video again. But one of the things that's really hot right now, we talked about it a little bit, are those cool like transitions. And a lot of people overdo them. Mm-hmm. Every shot in your video doesn't need to have this cool motion swipe transition thing. I'm a big fan of a thing called the Rules of Three. And it's something that another editor friend of mine told me. He's like, do an effect in a video, fine. And then do it like 2 other times throughout the video. Spread it out so they kind of all tie back in together, but it's not like, oh, hey, here's this 3-minute video with that one random transition, or hey, here's this 3-minute video with 315 transitions. So I think little things like that, and again, those are like things you can go and you can buy an After Effects file that does all that for you if you don't know how to like manually go through and animate that. And I think that can add a lot to it. I don't know. There's a bunch of different things I can talk about. Another thing is color grading.
I was going to mention that.
A lot of people just think like, oh, this movie was shot this way. No, it wasn't. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. And obviously I'm not saying, oh, get someone to color grade your Instagram video like this feature film. But if you're looking at like what just comes out of your phone, like all of its auto white balance, auto exposure, all of that. So your phone decides what it's shooting. Whereas a lot of cameras you can set to manually do stuff. So even if it's cold outside, you can set, it to daylight or set the white balance to warmer and make it look warmer like a sunny day or something like that. But also in post, there's a bunch of different things you can do to, push saturation, push contrast, push light into your shot and make it look crisper, make it look cleaner, make it look, sexier. No one wants to sit and watch a flat video that doesn't pop at all. Yeah. So I think, like transitions are a big thing.
You can download some free LUTs that kind of give it like a certain look.
Yeah. LUTs I don't love using LUTs. I'll use them as like a starting point and then usually still continue to tweak from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like, especially like a lot of them are pretty aggressive. Like if you have like 100% of this one LUT, it's just going to look really bad.
Yeah. And then, there's just a bunch of things. There's, audio is a big thing. Find a song that actually like fits with your video. Don't just throw like a random song from iTunes in there.
Very true.
It's hard. Like there's a project I just recently worked on where I sent the client probably 50 different tracks and said no to all of them. And then we had to like sit down. I had to be like, I'm not just using like one of these songs. I'm using this part for this opening part because it's fun and upbeat and it's going to get the audience excited. And then we're going to kind of transition down into this slower piece where we can have these speaker quotes from the event happen. And then we're going to end on this high note that's like this epic, like orchestra, like just powerful type of thing. So finding a song that actually fits your video. And
I think a lot of people just want to pick like their favorite current song or whatever.
Yeah, don't do that. If there's one thing you should not do is not use any top 100 song ever. Because it's been played on the radio 50 million times and no one's going to want to sit there and watch it in your video. Like if I start playing a video and freaking like
Despacito.
Maroon 5 comes on, that video gets next. Like it gets next so hard.
Yeah. What about also, I've seen a lot of people's YouTube tutorials and I'll look at like their final project file and it's got so many little audio things that they'll put in that are
sound effects,
like
and
little
stuff.
sound effects, like a whoosh transition sound or all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that kind of goes hand in hand with those animations I was telling you about, because if you do
too many, it can make
if you do too many, it can be like overkill. But like I was saying, you can buy kind of those transitions if you don't know how to make them, and usually the project file comes with some of those audio files. But yeah, there's even, one of the things that I do a lot is speed ramping, and I'll like speed ramp on beat to a song, but then underneath that speed ramp, and for those of you that don't know what speed ramping is, that's where you either slow down the footage or speed up the footage on a certain beat. Kind of like, think of like the movie 300. But putting a sound effect underneath that's like a bass drop or something like that, like a or like a swipe or something like that just is like that extra, it's the polish on top of everything. It just makes the video that much crisper, that much interactive. Like you can, and there's probably a bunch of good examples out there. I'm off the top of my head, I can't think of one, but go watch.
Music videos do tons of that kind of stuff.
But go watch a video that on mute and then turn the volume on, especially if it's something like with sound design. Like sound design is a whole nother animal. It's like
totally.
There's editing, and then there's coloring, and then there's sound design, and then there's After Effects. It's like there's all these different elements that make a great video great, and most people don't even realize it. Most people are like, oh yeah, that was cool looking video.
And I think a lot of people think that like the better the camera is, that's how you achieve those cinema quality or whatever you want to call it, like color grading stuff.
Yeah, well, it definitely helps. Grading something that's raw, like a Red camera, is definitely going to be better than trying to grade something out of your iPhone.
It's already been.
But you can still mess around with that to make it look better than it is coming out of here,
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Just for people, we've been saying raw a lot. What exactly does that mean? Because I know kind of, like, from what I know that basically instead of, like you said, with your iPhone, it's going to apply a lot of software to that and things to make it achieve a certain image. Whereas with RAW, you can like go and manipulate things afterwards. Is that kind of what it is?
So the best way to describe it is, I won't even talk about video. I'll describe it as photos. So when you take a photo on a point and shoot camera, actually I don't know if it's on a point and shoot, but if you have like a DSLR, there's usually the option to do a RAW photo and a JPEG. JPEG, everything's baked in. You can open that up in Photoshop and you can tweak it, but as you start to tweak it, the image quality starts to kind of fall apart. Whereas with RAW, it's like you shoot it and you tweak everything afterwards. You can open that photo up in Photoshop, you can change the exposure, you can change the lighting, you can change the white balance, you can change the saturation, you can do anything you want with it. Like I could stop down on my camera as far down as I want and just take a really dark photo outside, and then you can open that photo up because it's RAW in Photoshop and brighten it up and make it look like you're looking outside during the day. And that's the same thing with video. You still have to shoot it in a way that it looks good to color, but there's like, if someone shoots something overexposed, which means it's too bright, I don't have to sit there and be like, crap, this shot sucks, I'm not going to use it because it's overexposed, and try and find something similar. I can just take that file and say, let's bring the exposure down a little bit. Like, it's just this whole other world of being able to tweak footage in post-production.
That makes sense. That's cool.
It's like, when you're running and your shirt is like chafing your nipples and they're raw, it's like that, but for video.
I've experienced that, unfortunately, and I don't think I want to buy a red helium now. That's awesome, man. Well, I feel like we've done a lot. We did an hour and 44 minutes. It's been pretty solid. Is there anything else that people should know, or any last final stuff that people that you want to say to everybody, or any last final message or whatever?
I would just reiterate everything that we've been saying the past hour. Like, go out and find an engaging story. In the first 30 seconds, make sure that you like just make the video badass, because the first 30 seconds are what people are going to watch. And if it's boring, people are going to skip to the next thing. Like, we as a culture have ADD when it comes to media. So you can have a killer video and the last minute and a half is just like going to make people cry. But if the first 30 seconds are boring and nothing happens, they're never going to get to that ending, and they're never going to cry, and they're never going to be like, dude, that dude put out good work. I want to work with him. So you want the whole thing to be engaging, but you want the first 30 seconds to really just grab someone's attention and pull them in. Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing, is just tell good stories and don't make them boring.
There we go. Tell good stories and don't make them boring. Love it. That's awesome, dude. Well, if people want to follow you on social media or ask you questions or anything like that, where's the best places?
I'm on Tinder. So you'll want to swipe right on me. No, I think all my social media is just that weird YouTube name I gave out earlier. It's DREWSTIN77.
What's the 77 for?
It's so stupid. So I had a buddy in middle school who wanted to be Jewish, and he was like white, like the most white, like probably would have been a redhead, but just wasn't. And so he wanted to be Jewish. His name was Justin. And so his screen name was Justin7. And
why did he want to be Jewish?
I have no idea. Absolutely no idea. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But
No.
So I was like always hanging out with him, and we like showed up to youth group one night wearing like the same exact outfit. And I was like, haha, Justin and Drewston. And I was like, okay, Drewston77, Justin7, because that was like his screen name. And so I just like copied it as a joke, and no one uses that because it's so ridiculous that I just keep it, because anytime I go to sign up for anything and it asks me for a username, Andrew Winchell is always taken. Like, there's a fun fact before we wrap up. So I'm Andrew Winchell. My brother is Ben Winchell. And I know a Ben Winchell that does video and an Andrew Winchell that does video, and they are cousins, and we are not related.
Whoa, that's weird. Believe it or not, I'm friends with a guy named Andrew Deitch on Facebook. And it's
really?
like the weirdest last name.
Yeah.
And he like lives in Canada. So if you're listening to this, what's up, Andrew? I'm friends with him on Facebook. He sent me like a weird message the other day, like asking him to like support his new company or something. I was just like, okay. Just very confused. But anyways, what's up, Andrew? So yeah, if people want to follow you, they can go to Drewston77.
Yeah.
And if they want to like ask you questions, DM you or whatever.
Yeah. Or you can find me on Facebook and send me a message. I don't want to put you can put my email like in the link. I don't want to say it on.
Yeah, no worries. Cool. Awesome. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Sweet. This is a good one, man. I like this. I feel like people that are interested in like video stuff, which I feel like a lot of people are these days, because obviously with the rise of social media and all this stuff, it's where you share
and
that
the rise of
sort
the Planet of the Apes too.
Yes, definitely. Well, thanks for being on the show, and we'll see you later, folks. Boomski. I don't know where that came from, but there you have it, everybody. Episode 55, Andrew Winchell in the books. That was a very fun episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I definitely did. Like Andrew said, I'll make sure to put his info in the show notes that nobody reads, as Matt B. Davis likes to say. But again, I'm really glad Andrew was able to be so vulnerable, sharing his story. And that's the kind of stuff that people are craving nowadays, you know, in a world where everything is so calculated and fake. We get some real, raw, and transparent content. So again, thank you so much to Andrew. If you made it to the end of this episode, what are you thinking? You're thinking, hey, I enjoyed that. Hey, I'd like to do that again. Well, you know what? This podcast is pretty great. There's already so many other episodes. Where do I start? And that, my friends, is a great question. And it does not have a correct answer. But I do think that if you enjoyed this episode, I have a sneaking suspicion that you would be into episode 49 with my friend Alan McNairn. And Alan is the founder and owner of Orange Identity, a company focused on helping brands find their identity. And we talked about all kinds of fun stuff. So if you're into business or creating an online brand, you will definitely want to go check that out. And since recording that episode, I've actually listened to it again, and I got tons of value a second time. And I've already implemented a bunch of his ideas and strategies. I think you guys are going to really love it too. Go check it out, episode 49. But episode 56 is coming up next with my friend George Yu. And George is a really successful dude who has done a lot of interesting things, but namely he is the founder of a company called Wind Pouch. You've probably seen them before. They're like those inflatable hammock couch thingies. It's like this big bag almost. You fill it up with air, you cinch it down, and then you can sit on it anywhere. And you've probably seen them before, but if you haven't, you can Google it. But anyways, George was actually asked to come on Shark Tank, and he got chosen by Mark Cuban to be his investor, to be his shark for 20% of his company for $500,000. So I think it's safe to say that George is doing pretty big things. He told me all about his experience at Shark Tank and all kinds of other fun stuff as well. I think you guys are going to really, really enjoy that episode. George gave so much valuable content, stuff that, he wished that other people would have shared with him if he was in his position, and that's really valuable stuff. When anyone can tell you their experience and tell you the pitfalls and all the things you should avoid and things you should and shouldn't do, that is super valuable because you can save yourself a lot of time. So hopefully I'll be able to release that episode in the next couple days, hopefully by Wednesday the 15th. So stay tuned for that episode. I think you guys are really going to enjoy that one. But thank you guys so much for listening thus far. If you have, I assume you're enjoying the podcast. So please head over to iTunes or the Apple Podcast app if you're listening to this on an iPhone, and rate the podcast 5 stars. It really helps me a lot. It's like the only place where ratings matter because it's the number one place for people to discover podcasts. So it's really, really helpful for me. I read all the reviews. So if you can leave me a review, that would be really awesome. If you want to follow me, you can go to my website, andrewdeitsch.com. That's andrewdeitsch.com. And you can find links to all of my social media handles and accounts. But that's pretty much it. Again, I want to thank each and every one of you for listening. And I will talk to you all very soon on episode 56 with George Yu.
It really is tutorials. It's not like some 13-year-old sitting on his laptop and he's like,
Hey guys, this is how we're going to learn how to mask in After Effects.